Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and last night I held a tournament for the FB04 meta of the Fusion World card game using the online client this time, and honestly, it was a really good time. I appreciate everyone who came out for it. Also, shouts to Risu for being our judge, which, you know, as much as a judge we need for an online client tournament, but he helped me out, and I would not be able to do this tournament without him. But I've been really enjoying this meta. I think this is the strongest meta that this game has ever seen. There's so many decks that are viable in so many ways, and I've been having a lot of fun with it in general. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I probably won't have another tournament until we have until next month in 2025. We might try to have one more before we get our next set, but honestly, I've been just having a lot of fun, as mentioned. So we're gonna go over the top placing list for this video in general, and if you guys want any of the lists we use today, make sure to check out the link to the description for my website, Eggman Events. We've got a good amount of tournaments that are on there as well, including a couple of the finals across the world. I know we have the European finals upcoming this next weekend too. I'll try to get those lists as soon as I can, but again, there's a lot of diversity in deck building and choices, and again, I think this game is in a really good spot right now. So also, it was live streamed. It was only me on the camera this time, so it was a little bit just worse quality because I was also like the tournament organizer for this one, so not as good as I've done it previously. But if you guys want to check that out, it's linked in the description. You can watch the entire tournament and some test bobbity games I did beforehand if you guys care about it. But let's just jump on into this. So again, this was held last night. 42 players, 6 rounds of Swiss, best of 1 into this top 8 of 2 copies of Aandroidd 17, 1 copy of Baby Vegeta, which ended up winning the event, 1 copy of Zamasu, 1 Goku GT, a Jiren, an FB03 Goku, as well as a Majin Buu Evil. And then also we do have the leader breakdown. So 7 copies of Baby Vegeta and Son Goku, 5 copies of Aandroidd 17, 4 copies of Zamasu, 4 copies of Majin Buu Evil, 3 Jiren, 3 copies of Son Goku Mini, and then a 9 additional from there as well. So as mentioned, I think there's a lot of decks that are viable right now. I know that this is more of like a large locals instead of like a regional level event, but even so, I do think that there are so many decks that are viable, and I think just again having 7 different leaders in a top 8 like this is just a really good way to show just how strong this meta is in so many ways. Additionally, if you look at the top 5, they're all different leaders. So our champion and all of our X1s are different leaders too, which I think is just very strong. So there's so many decks that are viable right now. If there's a leader or just even a character that you like in the show, you can usually make it work one way or the other, and I think that's really cool. So we're going to go over all of the top 8 lists, and then we also have an additional X2. We had Daniel with their copy of Son Goku Mini Daima, which is our unique X2, so it was in a different additional deck that had an X2 record that could have bubbled into top 8 but just wasn't able to get there with tiebreakers. So we're gonna go over all these, and again, if you want any of these links to these lists and many others, make sure to check out my website, Eggman Events. But let's just jump on into it. We've got Thomas's version of Baby Vegeta, and this is a bit of a pile of cards. I'll be honest, it's 57 cards exactly, which is not a usual number for it. We have a good amount of variety between a couple of the packages of what I'd call like the Machine Mutant package, as well as the brainwashed version of the deck, right? And generally more kind of lean to one or the other. I think the Raildo package is really strong because you do get like not only some self-awakening with this 2-drop, but also the fact we have the 2-drop 20k into the 25k into the copy of the 30k. I think that's just generally pretty good value in this deck, and we get so much kind of attacks for no real energy investment, which is really nice. And then we are running 4 copies of the Super Baby 1, 3 copies of each of the Great 8 Baby, as well as the Son Goku GT, and then our top end of the Bardock. We also have like a swag copy of a Lonesome Final Battle, which I saw pop up on the screen every once in a while. This could help you get some more consistency, but I thought this was a really interesting ad for the deck. And then 10 times Kamehameha, which I think this needs to be bumped up to like 3 copies. Personally, I think this is such a good card in so many matchups, but I have been wanting to play Baby Vegeta in more of like this kind of toolbox leaning build. I think this one is like a little bit too open at times, since we do run so many of these different cards, but the idea that we can just get a lot of value in the mid game, not really kind of stress about self-awakening, and then in the late game just get a lot of value from being able to all the value from like the combos and the additional card draws that we get I think that can be very strong in a lot of ways, but I like this deck right now. I think it's really good in this meta, and especially with the different builds that exist, I think that's really cool for what this deck does in general. But this is Thomas's build. Congratulations for their first place with the baby Vegeta. And then next up, we've got Zamasu Fuse. So this is Tyler's version of it, and honestly, I felt like there's a good amount of Zamasu in this deck that are in this tournament that were doing well on the second half of this tournament as well. We do just have one in the top 8, but I do know a couple people believing in this one. And this is the full 60. This is definitely just a just grinder kind of deck for this meta. I do think, like, the first time I saw this Proud Saiyan card in FS07, I'm like, okay, this is a card for Zamasu. We're already playing 4 copies of Gallic Gun to be able to use it to be defensive and like not lose card advantage. This does pretty much the same thing but better. It's just so great for getting into a high life total into the late game scenario, which I think is very strong for this deck. And then we do have like the Sinister Sickle. We also have the Galactic Donut, which is a 3-drop Earthling, so Videl can get it, but this being able to draw 2 cards and stun a card comes up pretty often, I feel, which is really nice. And then just our draw ones from Trunks Mini, Trunks Youth, as well as Marin, which comes out of the Star deck as well, which is just the best draw of them all as long as you have 7 or less. Obviously we have Pilaf, and then our end game of 3 copies of the 5-drop Vegito, 2 copies of the 6-drop Vegito, and our Zeno. So this is a pretty obnoxious deck. It goes into the late game pretty easily, and you're just trying to outvalue your opponent before they run out of steam, or outvalue them, and then they run out of steam, and then you take advantage of it, which I think can happen pretty often. It's a bit of a slow grind. It's not very flashy at times, but you do get into some pretty good scenarios too. So I've been wanting to visit Zamasu again. I know there's a lot of blue decks that are viable. This is obviously the most defensive that we can get right now, but it is in a really good spot, I think, as well. So this is Tyler's build. Congratulations for their second place with Zamasu Fused. And then we also have 2 copies of Aandroidd 17. We have Alejandro's, who ended up getting 3rd, but they were undefeated going into the finals, as well as Carl's version of it, who was able to get a top 8 finish. So the only repeat in our top 8. And I still will say, like, Aandroidd 17 is the best kind of bang for your buck for not only just trying the deck out and trying the game out, but it's just so easy to build this deck, right? If you want to try this game at all, I think this is probably the easiest deck for you to get into. It's been meta since set 2, essentially, since the introduction of the 17 and 18. Most of the cards are commons, uncommons, rares, and the only super rares are Broly, which is a starter deck card, the Aandroidd 17-18, which we run 2 copies of, and it did get a bit of a rarity bump with this Nappa from FB04. This is pretty much needed at 4 copies, but it is very strong and does help you. If you don't have it, you can just use like some Destructive Strength and some other cards for ramp, but this is, I think, generically the best card for ramp in this deck right now. We also do run the Earthling package, which I know is a little bit of a decision, but most people are playing it. Both Alejandro and Carl are playing it. The fact that this Herco just gets you so much value late game just keeps coming up time and time again, so that's very strong for you. The Bulma is the 1-drop cycle, the other one, and then also the Master Roshi. This just means like you can feel really good about charging like your Gigantic Meteor or your Earth Destroying Blow early game, and then later you can make sure you can draw it with your Roshi and convert it into cards that you need later, especially if you can do like Hercule into Roshi into getting the card that you need. So you can also use the Warm Greening, which lets you get rid of some cards and get some good removal tendencies for you. Other than that, Son Gohan Childhood has been more often added to this deck just because it's a 10k and it gets some good removal on 4 costs, which I think comes up pretty often against specifically black decks with their Son Goku GTs as well as their Super Babies. And then our end game is, of course, the Broly BR. But a really strong deck, and I think there's a really standard build from Alejandro. There's a couple more tech choices. We've got 56 copies of cards for Carl's version of the build, and we are running like the 1 copy of Dr. Jiro's Lab, which sometimes comes up. We are also playing a little bit more of the defense with having the 6 costs on Gohan Childhood, this being able to help us get into the late game by just healing a card, which is generically just a really good effect that doesn't come up very often, but there is that. And I did kind of talk about we're running the same kind of package of the 1-drop Earthlings. Raditz is also just a really good add for this deck too. It's just a way to get some ramp without having to use an extra card, but also just establishing a body on board, which you can use to at least help pressure some of cards on your opponent's side too. But I don't think Aandroidd 17 is going anywhere. I was it's probably like the fairest it's been in the last little bit. I think it was probably one of the best decks in the last 2 metas in set 2 and set 3. It's still around, it's still a strong deck, but there are some checks for it, and it's not, I think, as like above average powerful as it is. I think it's just kind of middle of the road, but it is very popular due to the ease of access to it too. So I think the deck is in a very good spot, and congratulations to Alejandro and to Carl for their top 8 finishes there. The next up, we've got Son Goku GT. So this is Benjamin's version of the deck, and going into FB03, I think more people are leaning towards the Bardock leader compared to the Son Goku GT. But now that we're here in FB04, I think most people have been going to the Son Goku GT, which is pretty interesting because we didn't actually get like a lot of unique support for this deck, right? I do think there are some more times where we do have extra energy, so we can use like the 1 cost effect from the activate main of the backside. However, this is still just a generically just good black deck, right? We can use most of these cards, and by most I mean all these cards in Bardock, right? The newest card we have is the Trunks GT. This is generic for the deck. It's a Self-Awakener, but also you're able to use this to protect your other cards, which comes up pretty often, especially if you want to protect your 4-drops on Goku GT. You can play this like a turn early, and then if you still have the marker, you can go into the Son Goku GT, which is really nice. Other than that, we do have like the additional Son Goku GT, which lets you just be like a backup copy. I think a lot of people have been playing the Great Ape Baby in this deck though too, because it does get the ease of access of there's a good 2 drops you want to play from the deck, but also the removal from it is really good too. But I think that there's just such a good like set of cards for black in this game right now that between Son Goku GT, Baby Vegeta, or Bardock, I think all those decks are viable in their own ways. I think Bardock's fallen off a little bit, and I do think that it still can be played in this meta right now, but just a little bit less people on it in general. But again, I think this has been very strong. If you want to get into this game, it might not be too difficult to play either Son Goku GT or Bardock. Some of the cards are a little bit expensive, but you only need cards from set 3 and set 4, which kind of even it out a little bit. So it's just that all the super rares are incredibly playable, which is not the same for the other colors right now. But this is the build here from Benjamin, and congratulations for their top with Son Goku GT. And then our last X1 for the tournament, we do have Nicholas with their version of Jiren. I think Jiren's been a little bit underperforming in this meta based on what people were thinking going on into it. We did get some good support in the fact that we do have like the 2-drop Jiren, or sorry, the 6-cost Jiren at 2 copies. This just being able to aggressively pressure our opponents of being a 6-drop 40k. If your leader has Pride Troopers into special traits and your opponent's life is at 2 or more, you take 1 damage, then deal 1 damage to your opponent. So if we are the awakened leader, we're able to take damage but draw an additional card and also deal 1 damage to our opponent, and we need to do 1 more. I do think like the 6-drop Goku Secret Rare is just better in slot more times than not though. It does have a little bit of like weird synergy with the 4-drop Jiren, where this only works if we have to wait until they do the damage to our life and then we can use the Jiren effect. So it's kind of weird like in that, but it still gets some good value. We are also playing 4 copies of the Topo, which I think this is interesting for this deck. Most people, including myself, thought this was a pretty good auto include into the deck in general, but after practice, people don't generally awaken you very quickly. So if you want to play this on curve, you just generally just give yourself 1 damage, which could be fine, but then also late game you just don't have like enough energy open because you're generally wanting to play your 6 drops at the same time. So I think it's a weird mix for Topo. I was thinking it's going to be really good, but it never really found a great time to be played, and it just got less and less played the more I tried out the deck. So I think Jiren's in an okay spot. I play a lot of yellow, so I'm okay with it not being super around right now, but there's obviously some good signs for why it's viable. I think red has a good amount of viability between Jiren as well as Son Goku, Mini, and Beerus. I think the new Goku leader is probably the glass cannon-ish of the red leaders that are viable right now, but I think red has such a good card pool, and the Son Goku secret rare does enable a lot of decks and can win you a lot of games too if your opponent's not expecting it. So, and even if they are, they can't really do anything about it at times. But I think the deck is in a good spot. I think Jiren's in a good spot too. Maybe not as good as it was maybe in FB03, but it is still very viable and very present here as well. So this is the build from Nicholas, and congratulations for their finish with Jiren. And then to go into the last couple of decks that we have for y'all, we do have the Son Goku from FB03. This has been the surprise to me on how popular this deck has been in this meta in general. It did take the largest slice of 7 spots out of the 42, tied with Baby Vegeta, and it has won a couple of World Championship spots in the last couple weeks around the world too, and mostly just because we got one new card, right? And we've seen this with Aandroidd 17, right? They got their 17-18 4-drop that just enabled this deck. And this Videl is just super good, right? I mean, it's just like another 1-drop 10k Earthling, right? Which the deck now has so many of. But not only that, but the effect for it is really great. It might have needed to go to the trash. I think returning this card to your hand was maybe like a mistake for the card, because you get so much value. Like there's no real cost, right? If we're playing 39 Satan City cards, right? Like 80% of the chance on blind hits, this is gonna work, right? So this is like a better coin flip, and then you can obviously set it up. But then also the worst case, you just put this card back in your hand. Like, sure, you wasted an energy, but you are in a color that can generally just be flexible with what their energy does anyways. So I do think that this does have a good package. We are playing additionally in this version from Paul. We do have the Great Saiyaman 2, which I've seen this as being like a decision point if we're playing this. This can be good because this gets 2 bodies on our board for 4, and this does play from our drop, which means you technically draw a card since this gets hit on the board. And then after that, we can use cards like the Great Saiyaman, which lets you get some removal too. We are also playing the Final Flash, which is a little bit less played. It is from Star Deck 2, but we can use this to get rid of a 5 or less. We have to discard a card from our hand, and we want to be at like 7 or less, which is generally pretty easy, I think, at this time too. But and you also can technically play this for free if we do have the sharpener, because it does reduce the cost of it by 1 as well. But by being able to use this, you can you discard 2 cards with this one included, I guess. And if you do so, you get rid of a 5 or less. So I think that comes up quite a bit. I think Saiyaman is just better in slot, but there are some weird times where I can see you just need to be able to get a 5 or less instead. So we do still have a cost reduction for Hercule, so this can get rid of most things that aren't 8 costs in this game. And I think that's strong in its own way. But this deck's really viable. It's going to be around, I think, a bit. I would say this is the best blue deck that we have right now in this meta. And it's going to be, again, very popular. But this is Paul's version of the build. Congratulations for their top 8 there. And then we also, to wrap up our top 8s, we do have Majin Buu Evil. This is, again, my favorite deck of the meta right now. And this is Jordan's version of it, who was able to get an 8th place finish. There's so much I could talk about this. I've made videos about this deck, but the biggest thing I think is that it punishes kind of like decks that want to like self-awaken very quickly or be really just kind of control heavy, because we do have the great like discard effect with the Majin Buu Evil. Being able to draw a card and make your opponent discard is really good. I also think like this is just this is generic. Like there's nothing, this doesn't need to be put in anything outside of a yellow deck. And I think I would want to put this in so many different control decks because of the power of this ability in general. Just works out really, really well in a lot of situations. And we are running like the Bulma, which we could like use the effect to rest it, and then we can pop it with Majin Buu Evil and then get like the additional value there, which is really nice. We are playing the Banan, and the reason we're doing this is that so we have like an aggressive option that can attack, but it also restands at the end of your turn because it chooses one Rasmo Bao card with Frieza's army, which can include itself, and then if you use that, you're able to restand the card, which is really nice. So by doing that, your opponent, if they're attacking attacking with their leader to get their card draw for the turn, it has to go towards your leader, which means you're hoping to self-awaken, which means that you are closer to being able to get your double attack from your leader every turn, which is really nice. Are the additional energy, which I have been playing a lot of this energy absorption card in my builds too. It's so easy where, our leader effect, most people look at the double attack possibility, but you can get an energy back too, and that becomes really invaluable in a lot of situations where you want to just kind of apply a lot of pressure, and then if your opponent just has like one big body left on the board, you can just use energy absorption to rest it down instead of getting like another 20k leader attack when you're not going to get the extra draw anyway. So that comes up quite a bit. I do think that's very strong for the deck. And I don't know. I think a lot of people are kind of like worried about, oh, this can have a bad matchup in red sometimes, but this is such a strong deck in my opinion right now, and I've been really enjoying playing it as well. So this is the build here though, and congratulations for their finish there. And then lastly, we do have Daniel. So this is our X2 bubble out deck, but it is the Son Goku Mini Daima. If I was to play a red deck in this meta, it would definitely be the Son Goku Mini. I think it's super flexible in what it's able to do. There's a lot of different ways you can get some like creative removal, which is nice, and the fact that like you are probably one of the best decks to really take advantage of the Son Goku Secret Rare, in my opinion. I think the card is just super strong, and we're able to just get that value, which I really like. The other thing is that I think red has a lot of just toolboxy cards, which just are good at removal in a lot of situations. The fact that we have arguably the best removal in this game is super strong. Son Gohan Adolescence is still a super strong card, which we can play off the Kefla. We do have like the Son Goku, the Rumshi. It's Over is such a good card in this deck. I can't stress it enough. Being able to, if you play out a 25k, like the Son Goku here, give it the +5 with their leader effect. So not only does it draw a card when attacking, but then you give something on your opponent's side -5k, and then you get rid of all their 25k power less. It's so good in so many situations, and I've been really enjoying that. And if you like need to get there too, you can play the Son Goku Mini Daima, and then this will be a 30k 35k with leader effect, and you can you do have to take the life from this, but you are able to get that additional value, which is really nice. One card that I didn't like at first, but I am probably pumping up, is this Vegeta. Sometimes it just wins games, which is kind of weird, but if you're going to like low hand size situations, your opponent's at 1 life, the fact that this can just be like a 55 or 50k 55 with our leader effect out of nowhere can just catch your opponents off guard sometimes. So that's really good. But I really like this deck. It's been a lot of fun to play, and I do think, again, red does have a lot of cool tricks that are really strong in this meta in general. But that's going to be it for me. That's going to be my ramblings for this one. I could talk for a while about how fun and how good this meta is in this game right now, and just again, we have so many different decks that are viable right now. We have something from every color that I think people can play, if not many things from every color. And in general, I've just been, again, having a whole blast. So we'll see when our next one is. So make sure to look out on my socials when that's going to be. If you guys, again, enjoy these videos, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. And make sure to check out Eggman events for additional deck list as well. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.